Greetings, fellow Gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru.
And I'm Count Jackula.
And he's Count Jackula, and we just saw Longlegs, the latest film by Oz Perkins, who some of you may know as the director of The Black Coat's Daughter, The Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, and Gretel and Hansel, I believe.
I haven't seen.
Not Hansel and Gretel, but Gretel and Hansel. I have seen Gretel and Hansel, and I do like it. I like it better than Pretty Thing That Lives in the House anyway.
Pretty Thing That Lives in the House was pretty much the worst movie I saw that year.
Yeah, it was a really bad movie. On the flip side, Black Coat's Daughter is like a freaking masterpiece.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure we have vlogs for both of those movies somewhere out in the ether. Not for Gretel and Hansel, because Jack didn't see that. Yeah. My overall thoughts on that one is I think that one's pretty good. Black Coat's Daughter's better, but that's largely because Gretel and Hansel was more of a young adult movie, so a lot of the usual ambiguity that's in his movies isn't present. They kind of explain everything. Gretel and Hansel has like a Blade Runner-esque voiceover that I feel like if you stripped it would be a more interesting movie because it wouldn't be explaining everything every 5 minutes, if that makes sense.
So like he starts explaining things a little bit more, he gets to Gretel and Hansel, and then he's like, okay, I think I need to pull the brakes on this and go back a bit.
And so now he has released Longlegs, which is intended for an adult audience, and is once again a return to his ambiguity, though I feel like everything that's great about his old movies is here and present and honed, and all the things that make his past movies iffy or bad, like in Pretty Things, not as present in this movie. The only problem this movie really has is that it's a slow burn.
Yeah, especially the second act.
Oh yeah.
This movie takes its goddamn time. It's actually only like 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's not that long.
Yeah, it's not actually that long a movie, but man, there's a period of time where you're like, get to the next thing, man. We've been here too long.
Fair. The idea of this movie is that it is a murder mystery that follows Agent Lee Harker, played by Maika Monroe, who you may know from It Follows or Villains and a couple other movies that came out in the last decade, who is hunting down a serial killer who kills people, but in a way that's not very clear. It seems like the people kill themselves, but at the location of every murder-suicide, there is a note left behind by someone named Longlegs with writing that does not match any of the penmanship of anyone else involved in the cases.
Yeah.
And it's consistent from case to case, like the note is.
Yeah. So they're like, this is either a group of people who have all decided to do the exact same kind of murder, or what? What else could it be?
And the writing is written in code that appears to be some sort of like occult satanic code. Think like the Zodiac Killer, who wrote these little ciphers for his notes. This character very much does the same thing with a satanic twist. So Lee Harker's trying to track them down, and she's chosen for the job because she has this uncanny ability to know things. She appears to be clairvoyant. The way she describes it is there's like a voice that taps her on the shoulder and tells her what the right choice is.
Yeah.
But as the movie goes on, you will find out there is more to this than just that, but we'll talk about that in the spoiler section.
Yeah, the movie is a gigantic like homage to films like Seven.
Yeah, 90s murder mystery psychological thrillers.
Yeah, there's a lot of Silence of the Lambs. Some might argue, in the beginning at least, maybe a bit too much. But there's a lot of Silence of the Lambs, particularly in the first act.
Oh yeah, everything with Lee Harker having her first case in the FBI and then getting assigned this case very much feels like Clarice Starling.
They don't do the full reveal of Longlegs, but you see Longlegs in the very beginning.
Yeah.
And they talk like salad fingers, if you remember like those animations.
Oh yeah, the way Longlegs speaks, who is played by Nicolas Cage, by the way, who's completely unhinged in this movie in the best ways possible.
Yeah, this is probably the most unhinged I've ever seen Nicolas Cage.
But if you're going into this movie just to see nonstop Nicolas Cage, I'm gonna warn you right now, he's more like John Doe in Seven. He's not in a lot of the movie, but when he is in the movie, he dominates the scenes.
Yeah. The movie is on fire every time Nicolas Cage is in a scene.
Absolutely.
That's where it stops being slow. Whenever they go to whatever he's doing and you're like, okay, yeah, all right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and the thing is until the third act, they don't show him doing much. He's just so unsettling.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the way I would describe this whole movie. It's not scary like in the way like a jump scare spooky horror movie is.
No.
It's more unsettling. It's got this palpable atmosphere of dread.
Yeah, like Seven.
Yeah. Even in scenes where nothing really awful is happening, you're just sitting there feeling uncomfortable just because the soundtrack and the imagery just feels uncomfortable.
Yeah, I could tell that a lot of the slow pacing was deliberate because he wanted to extend that atmosphere as long as possible.
Absolutely. And you can tell that he was 100% evoking the vibes of Seven, of Silence of the Lambs, of Fallen with Denzel Washington, which was actually about a guy tracking down a occult killer. So there's some similar things there. The point is, 90s thrillers like that, this movie is evoking, but it does something completely different with its final act than any of those movies did. So while it starts off as a homage to movies like Seven and movies like Silence of the Lambs, it evolves into its own thing by the end of the movie.
Yeah, it's a very different movie in the third act.
And we'll talk more about that in the spoiler section because it's a murder mystery. We don't want to reveal like what's going on there.
It took me forever to remember that the actress playing Lee Harker was the main character from It Follows.
Yes. Well, because she looks a lot older now, and so
so she's got brown hair, dark hair in this one,
and she's also playing a very different character in this. She's playing a character who is very reserved, very quiet, very uncomfortable in her own skin, and obviously uncomfortable in social situations. Constantly looks like she's on the verge of like a nervous breakdown at any given moment. But she's also the one where when she chimes in, you're going to want to listen to what she has to say because what she's going to say is going to solve the case. At any given moment.
And like one of the weird things about what goes on is that even though they brought her on, they kind of ignore her.
Which reminded me a lot of like Silence of the Lambs, right? It's like they bring Clarice Starling onto the case, but even though she's onto the case, she's a woman, so there's all this sexism compounded on her. It's less about sexism in this movie and more about skepticism about her clairvoyance. This is a murder mystery like those other movies, except you know who the killer is, and so the mystery is more about why are they doing it?
Why the fuck is he doing this?
And how does he do it? How is he getting all these people to kill themselves? And how is he also figuring out that we're the ones investigating the case? Those questions will be answered. What I love about it is it's got one of those endings where if you go back to previous scenes, things start to make even more sense. Even if something's a really weird, ambiguous scene and you're not quite sure what just happened, later on in the movie, context will be given to it that when you go back to that scene, you'll be like, oh shit, okay, now I get why that happened that way. Nicolas Cage is interesting in this movie because for me, he comes across in the beginning when you get your quick glimpses of him kind of funny to me. Like he's doing the unhinged Cage thing. He's kind of playing it a little androgynous. And so his voice will randomly go from being like high pitch to low pitch. And so there's kind of like this almost clown energy to him. Initially, I was laughing. But then the longer those scenes went on, the more uncomfortable I got. And I realized when it reaches its climax, oh shit, I'm scared of him. I suspect I will be even more unnerved by the stuff I was laughing at earlier in the movie when I rewatched the movie with the context of knowing how it ends. And that's actually one thing I really like is that this movie definitely has rewatch value for multiple reasons. There's a lot of stuff that's happening in the background that you might not catch the first time around, and going back to some of those scenes, you go like, oh shit, I never noticed that back there. You know, I never noticed that right over there. Oh crap. There's stuff you're gonna notice right away. Like there's like this very prominent picture in her boss's office of Bill Clinton clearly setting the movie in the 90s.
Just letting you know this is in the 90s.
And every time it cut to his office, I was always just sitting there going like, clearly the person over her shoulder is Bill Clinton the whole time. Yeah, that's the answer over there.
That's the answer over there. It'll suck my cock.
Anyway, my fellow Gorehounds, Longlegs is a solid movie. I recommend if you find the movie slow to stick with it because trust me, the ending delivers. I do not think the movie's going to be for everyone because I don't know if everyone's going to be as unnerved by Cage as I was in the end. Some people might just find him hilarious still.
But
it worked for me. And Cage is like that. Cage will either work for you or he won't. And apparently Massimo has joined us. Hey, buddy. How you doing, buddy? Hey. Massimo is our neighbor's dog, and we share a yard. And occasionally, when Massimo goes out to use the bathroom, he will remember that he knows how to use Gomez's cat door. We're talking about long legs, and you have really short legs.
Okay, sit.
He's already sitting.
There we go.
Anyway, my fellow Gorehounds, Longlegs is currently available in theaters. Check it out if anything we have said has enticed you to see it. I really liked the movie. I don't think it's going to make my top 10 list at the end of the year, but it is a really good movie. And honestly, that's more about there being so many good movies this year than a knock on this movie, because I really did enjoy it. The acting is great. The atmosphere is great. It's a little slow, but it definitely delivers. And with that said, let's move on to the spoilers so we can talk about what exactly is going on behind the scenes of Longlegs' schemes.
Nope, you don't need coffee, dog. You don't need coffee.
Spoiler time. So over the course of this movie, Lee Harker starts to figure out a lot of things about Longlegs. She deciphers the code that he's been sending, which leads to them finding this doll at one of the crime scenes, and the doll is identical to the child of the family that the murder happened. It's the child that actually managed to survive. It's one of the few kids that survived one of these murder sprees.
Yeah.
And they go and interrogate her, who's played by Sabrina herself.
Kiernan Shipka,
who is giving an amazing performance, by the way.
Also unrecognizable.
And I gotta give her credit because her dialogue is written in this really frantic way that must have been hard as fuck to memorize and deliver. She's like a child that's speaking in nursery rhyme. It's really weird.
Yeah, but her dialogue is super crucial to the plot.
It's super crucial.
So you know she didn't make it up.
She indicates that the connection between the main character and Longlegs goes back further than just Longlegs figuring out that she's on the case.
Yeah.
Like, she indicates that, like, oh, like, there's a connection between you and me, and that we're both children involved in this. And so basically what she ends up uncovering is that she is one of those 9-year-old kids. But for whatever reason, the murder never happened in her house the way it did in all these other houses. There's a missing date on the dates that she graphed, because she figures out that the dates all perfectly form into this upside down triangle formation.
Yeah.
Further indicating some sort of satanic influence going on here. And she realizes that one of the dates is missing. So this leads to her interrogating her mom about what happened on her 9th birthday. And she ends up uncovering an old Polaroid that shows that she met Longlegs.
Yeah.
And she knows it's Longlegs because her clairvoyance is telling her that's who it is. And we know it's Longlegs because the opening scene showed us that little girl meeting him.
Yes.
And it turns out the little girl is Lee.
Yeah.
It has been Lee the whole time. This allows them to track down Longlegs and bring him in now that they have a photo of him, and they can like broadcast that everywhere. Like, look for this man if you see him. He has a very identifiable look, so I'm not surprised they are able to track him down.
Oh, yeah. He looks so weird. You're like, that guy.
Yeah.
You know,
anyone who's seen him will be like, oh yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah.
Especially since he's so fucking weird, you can't forget him. There's this really creepy scene in a grocery store where he like walks in and just like uncomfortably talks to this teenage girl. And when I say uncomfortable, it's not like he's coming on to her. It's like he's doing all this weird shit, like covering his eyes and like cuckoo, cuckoo, and just doing all these weird non sequiturs that's making her uncomfortable and like wishing her a happy birthday and shit. It's just like, what the fuck is this? When you see that scene, you're like, okay, anyone who's ever seen this guy, when they see that like photo that's being passed around, they're gonna know who it is. They're gonna remember.
He's also like albino.
Yes, that's another aspect to him. Turns out there's a connection between her mom, and him, but she's still not quite sure what that connection is with her mom, and she's got to figure that out.
Yeah.
But she kind of comes to the conclusion that he has an accomplice, and unfortunately, they're coming across the next date in the triangle, so they're on a timetable. So it's like, okay, let's go bring in my mom. I'm pretty sure she knows something. So they go to try to bring in the mom, only for the mom to shoot the shit out of one of her superiors with a shotgun.
We're now entering the third act.
Yeah, we're entering the third act now. The end of the second act was Longlegs killing himself by slamming his face into the table and screaming, "Hail Satan."
Man, no one can scream Hail Satan like Nicolas
I know.
Cage,
That's
man.
2 movies in a row where he screamed Hail Satan between this and Renfield.
Yeah.
Two very different movies. Both feature Nicolas Cage saying "Hail Satan" in a hilariously exciting way.
Yeah.
Her mom kills one of her superiors and then busts out this doll that looks like the main character as a little girl, dressed exactly like her in the opening scene of the movie, and mentions, well, now that you've freed him, I'm going to free you. And she shoots the doll in the head. And over the course of the movie, they've discovered that the dolls that were left at the crime scenes have these little orbs inside them, these metal orbs, and they're empty, but they give off these weird readings.
Yeah.
And one of the coroners said that he could have sworn he heard like his ex-wife's voice coming out of it at one point, but he just chalked it up to being kind of like an insomniac working late. The mom shoots the doll in the head. That orb shatters. Black smoke comes out.
Yeah, and then you turn to the main character and black smoke is coming out of her head.
Yeah, it's coming out of her head and she passes out. She wakes up in Longlegs' shop where he builds these dolls.
Yeah,
We've seen it.
Turns out is right under her house.
Yeah, it's in the basement of her house in the room she was never allowed to go to. Turns out that back when it was her family's turn to be sacrificed to Satan,
her mom saves her from being killed by Longlegs. Longlegs is like, well, I'll make you a deal.
Yep.
And this is the deal.
The way Longlegs does it is he puts a bit of his soul and a bit of the little girl's soul in this little orb in the doll, and that doll is brought to their house. And the mom helps him do this by pretending to be a nun and delivering the doll as like a gift from the church. Like, hey, you won this contest and we made a doll of your little girl. And the doll then proceeds to possess everyone in the house and make them kill each other.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they're delivering little Annabelles. When the mom shoots the doll of the main character, her soul is released. And all of a sudden, she's able to express emotions in a way that she couldn't earlier on in the movie.
Yeah, because in the beginning, like, she's practically catatonic.
Yeah, the thing about her early on in the movie is that you think that she's just socially anxious.
Yeah.
But it turns out she actually is not very in tune with her own emotional state because she's not able to be.
Yeah. Because there's a part of her soul that's been removed.
Because she's possessed, because the clairvoyance that she keeps talking about, the thing that keeps poking her on the shoulder and telling her what to do, is Satan.
Yeah.
It's Satan himself, which means every part of this investigation so far that she's solved has been at Satan's behest without realizing it.
Yeah.
She's an unwitting tool of Satan, unlike her mom and unlike Longlegs, who are willing tools at this point.
Yes.
And what I love about this reveal is that there's a lot of things from earlier in the movie that start to make more sense now. One of the ways this movie is visually shot is there's a lot of scenes whenever we're looking at the main character Lee, where she's in the center of the frame and there's a lot of empty space behind her.
Yeah.
And the empty space is usually just like the background of the house she's in or whatever room she's in or whatever. If you're paying attention to the background of these shots, there will be images of Satan hidden in the background.
Yeah.
And so one of the fun games you can do going back to the movie is noting every time Satan was right over her shoulder.
Yeah.
And the other thing that starts to make more sense is there was like exchanges early on in the movie with her mom that kind of made sense when you're first watching it, but take on a whole new context when you rewatch it. An example being, there is a point in which the mom says, I want you to be honest with me, have you been saying your prayers? And the daughter responds with, no, mom, the prayers scare me. And when you first hear that, you're like, oh, well, she's just like an atheist and doesn't like Christian prayers or whatever. But then at the end of the movie, you realize, oh no, they were satanic prayers.
Yeah, they're satanic prayers.
That's why they scared her.
Yeah. And also, like, when you go to her mom's place, there actually is, like, no religious iconography
Despite her constantly talking like a religious person.
Yeah.
She doesn't want her daughter to die, which is why she makes this whole deal with Longlegs in the first place. How about instead of having us go through this, I help you carry out all the rest?
Yeah.
But that does mean that there is a missing date. And that missing date is coming up again. It's time to complete the triangle. When she wakes up after regaining her soul and has a complete screaming fit because she can now access her own emotional state, she gets a call saying like, oh, aren't you forgetting the little girl's birthday? And the little girl in question is her partner's daughter.
Yeah.
Invited her to her birthday earlier on in the movie.
Yeah, and they make mention of the fact that they share a birthday.
Yes, absolutely. Which means that the daughter is once again again born on the 14th like all these other victims, and it is now that day. The triangle is about to be complete. She's got to get to the birthday party and stop it from being completed.
Yep.
So she gets there, and her mom's already there. Her partner and her partner's wife are already possessed, and it's very obvious. And it's a very uncomfortable scene where characters are like alluding to the fact that they're about to murder or about to be killed, but they're not outright saying it. It's all subtext. And this leads to her having to kill her mom. It leads to her having to shoot her partner after the partner kills his wife. And she's trying to protect the daughter by trying to shoot the doll that houses the daughter's soul. Yeah. But she can't.
Yeah.
The gun won't fire. Now you can read it one of two ways. Either she's out of bullets or Satan's not letting her.
Yeah.
Satan let the mom shoot her thing and free her because
that's part of the deal.
Part of the deal, part of the plan, but it's not going to let her save this other little girl. This other little girl is his.
Yep.
And that's when the movie ends. Satan wins. All the people he wanted dead are dead. Her mom's dead, which completes that cycle. And the deal's complete, so she's free. Satan gets to keep the little girl.
Yeah.
Hail Satan!
Hail Satan! And with that said, my fellow gorehounds, where can they find you, Count Jackula?
You can find me here on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, where I stream from about 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to whenever I feel like it. I also stream on Twitch on Tuesdays and Thursdays at the same time. You can find me there, Count_Jackula.
Y'all know me, I'm the Horror Guru. You can find me at the Horror Guru on Twitter, on Twitch, Instagram, Facebook. Just look up the Horror Guru or Blood Splattered Cinema and I'll be there. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you'd like to help out either of us more directly, be sure to check out our Patreon pages. And remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way, but we will certainly accept more. And if you made it this far into the video, then I want you to comment below, and be sure to comment below using the hashtag DollyDearest. Use the hashtag DollyDearest, that way I know, that way Jack knows, that way the whole world knows that you just won a prize from the church.
I hope you enjoy your birthday, little girl.
And with that said, my fellow gorehounds, peace out, and we'll catch y'all later.